Hello everyone, welcome to our channel Link Frequency and I'm Aishwarya Pattar. This video is going to be very special because I have come up with an application which has most of the common examples of C program covered in it. So without any further delay, let's get started. Well, we are back to our screen. I hope my screen is visible. Let's look at the question for our application program. The question goes like this. Write a program for the following. Find factorial of a number. Calculate temperature in Fahrenheit. Whether the number is even or odd. Whether a number is a palindrome or not. Create a user menu to select the option required for the execution. Once all the execution are completed, then terminate the program. So basically it is asking us to write all these 4 programs in our application. So let's see how we can do it. So and also they are mentioning a hint. We are supposed to use a menu kind of thing. So menu is nothing but you will get an option to select from the user side, and once the option is selected, you will perform only that specific task. So let us go into the code part of this. Well, looking at the code, again we have followed the same basic structure of C where we have the 6 sections. So you can see there is a documentation part, and this is an example for our example program number 3. So that is mentioned here. And then we have the header file, the main function. Since there is no different function or a sub function used here, so only we are having a main function. So that is indicated here. So inside the main, I have just taken all the variables which are necessary. For example, int, choice, num, I, fact, temp, reminder data, and float. I have taken Celsius and Fahrenheit, and finally I have taken a sum equal to 0. So now let's see how we have done the coding. So since we are being supposed as to have a menu kind of stuff, so here we have used while one. So while one is nothing but it kind of creates an infinite loop. So to come out of this loop, we will have to have a specific exit statement. So inside while statement, I have mentioned all the options which are necessary. For example, our first option is factorial, second one is temperature, third one is even or odd, fourth one is palindrome, and lastly, because since we have used while one, if we want to terminate the program, then I have kept an exit option. So let's take the input from the user, because the user has to select the choice, right? So for that we are using this printf statement, which takes the choice from the user. So once the choice has been taken, then we are trying to use a switch condition. So inside switch, we have the choice. The choice will indicate the number, and inside the switch condition we have different cases. And finally, towards the end, we have a default case. In case 1, you can see printf and scanf statements. That is because it is asking for a value for which the factorial has to be calculated. So once the number is fetched, what we are doing is we are using a for loop. The basic syntax of for loop is very familiar, I hope, with everybody. And if not, you can just watch the previous videos and come back here. And from here, inside the for loop, we have the simple equation that indicates fact is equal to fact star I. This will give us the overall factorial of the number. And once the value is fetched, it finally uses this printf statement to indicate. And finally, we have the break statement which comes out of this condition. The next case statement is case 2, that is for temperature. If we have given a temperature value in Celsius, what is the similar value in Fahrenheit? For that, we are again taking input from the user. Here, the Celsius value can be in float. So I have used %f. Once the value is taken from the user, we are going to do the simple calculation for Fahrenheit. It is nothing but we have the formula 1.8 star Celsius value plus 32. So once this calculation is done, we will get the value in Fahrenheit. So after the calculation, the value is passed for our printf statement so that it is visible to the user. And finally, we have the break statement. Moving on to our next case, that is case number 3. Here, this case is used to check whether a number entered is even or odd. We are taking the input from the user. For that reason, the num is used. And if our num modulo 2 is equal to 0, then we will say that the number entered is even. And if it is not, then we will say that the number entered is an odd number. And finally, we have a break statement to come out of this case condition. Moving on to our next case, that is case number 4. It indicates to check whether a entered number is a palindrome or not. So we are going to take the input from the user for num. That is the reason we have printf and scanf statement. And since there are some calculations done internally with the help of number, for certain reasons we are going to store the value of num in temp, so that it will help us to in the last step while we are checking the value. And inside while loop, we have our number should be greater than 0, and we will fetch the last digit of the number using num modulo 10. And then we have this equation as sum equal to sum star 10, and initially I had mentioned sum equal to 0, so now it will use the same computation here and it will add with our reminder data, and the final value is stored in sum. And finally we will have num is equal to num divided by 10, and this loop repeats until and unless the values are completely done. And once this loop is done, it will come out, and here you can see if our sum value, whatever has been calculated, is equal to our temp value. If you remember, in 68 line number we had saved our number in temp. So the sum is equal to temp, then we will say that the entered number is a palindrome, and if not, then it is not a palindrome. So this is for case 4, and finally we'll come out of the loop using this break statement. And then lastly, we have a default statement. Since we had used while one, which is an infinite loop, what if we want to come out of this loop? Then you can directly have this case 5, which will help us to exit the program. So overall, this was like kind of options which we are trying to give to the user. So let me run this code so that you'll have an even better understanding of the code. So you can see the options here. Option 1 is for factorial, option 2 is for temperature, 3 is for even or odd, 4 is for palindrome, and 5 is to exit. Let us look into each options individually. I'll enter option 1. So it is asking me enter number for factorial. Let me give factorial of 5. So you will get the factorial value of 5 is 120. Let me go for choice, that is option 2. So it is asking me to enter the temperature in Celsius. Let me consider it as 37.00. So you will get the value in Fahrenheit, that is 98.59. So it has already calculated the value for us. Next condition, let me give value 3 to check whether our entered number is even or odd. So in this condition, let me enter value 25. So once I enter 25, you can see the number is an odd number. So again, it's asking me a choice here. So let me go with a choice number 4 to check whether it is a palindrome or not. To check, I'll give value 7887. So finally, you will find the results. The number 7887 is a palindrome. What if I give some different number for option 2, palindrome itself? Let me try to give 5632. So you can finally see the result as the number 5623 is not a palindrome. So likewise, you can try to check for all the other cases as well. Now, if I want to come out of this loop, then what should I do? Then directly you can just give your option as 5, and finally it indicates end of selection. So this is what has been indicated. So this was a very simple program where I try to include maximum C codes in one application itself. So for any queries related to this program, you can surely comment down in the comment section. And also you can try out new other different approaches for this same example. Thank you so much for watching our video. I hope you could enjoy the video content. Consider subscribing to our channel Link Frequency, and also don't forget to share our videos across all your connections. Until we meet on our next video, happy learning. Tune yourself to make a difference.